I'm Katie Couric. Bush versus Kerry again. Tonight, the president is accusing the senator of bashing U.S. troops. Meanwhile, Kerry is calling Republicans nut jobs. Who's calling the shots? U.S. forces in one section of Baghdad are told to pack up and keep out. Unlocking the mystery of SIDS, an important study reveals why more than 2,000 infants in this country die every year. And All Hallows breaking loose as kitty costumes should be rated R for risque.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hi, everyone. With just 1 week to go now before the next election, tonight it looks like they've decided to rerun the last one. President Bush and Senator John Kerry were going at it again today, fighting about Iraq, American soldiers, and who said what about them. The sparks are flying. Here's Jim Axelrod at the White House.
Talking to students at a campaign event last night, John Kerry's one-liner fell flat.
Most of it, you study hard, and you do your homework, and you make an effort to be smart. You can do well. If you don't, you get stuck in Iraq.
Kerry called it a botched joke about the president. Mr. Bush said nothing doing. It was a slam at the troops.
The senator's suggestion that the men and women of our military are somehow uneducated is insulting, and it is shameful.
1 week from Election Day 2006, and suddenly it's back to the future. George Bush and John Kerry are again front and center. Only this time, neither is running.
The members of the United States military are plenty smart, and they are plenty brave. And the senator from Massachusetts owes them an apology.
I apologize to no one for my criticism of the president and of his broken policy.
At least everyone already knows their lines. Kerry, a highly decorated veteran, questioned his critics.
I'm sick and tired of a whole bunch of Republican attacks, most of which come from people who never wore the uniform and never had the courage to stand up and go to war themselves. Enough is enough.
One who did, Senator John McCain, spoke out. He and Mr. Kerry are considering runs for the White House in 2008.
The suggestion that only the least educated Americans would agree to serve in the military and fight in Iraq is an insult to every soldier serving in combat today.
But today, John Kerry signaled Republicans would not swift boat him again.
I'm not going to give them 1 ounce of daylight to spread one of their lies and to play this game ever again. That is a lesson I learned deep and hard.
So what's the big deal? John Kerry may have energized Republicans to vote who might otherwise have stayed home. You can bet we'll be hearing a lot more about this tomorrow when President Bush does a radio interview. Whose broadcast? Rush Limbaugh's. Katie?
All right, Jim Axelrod at the White House tonight. So how will this all shake out? A little bit later, we'll check in with our political experts, Mike McCurry and Nicole Wallace. Now, from the war of words to the actual war on the ground, 2 more U.S. soldiers have been killed in combat in the Baghdad area. On this final day of October, the U.S. death toll for the month is now 103, making it the 4th deadliest month of the war. Also today, more signs of growing tension between Washington and an Iraqi government that seems to be taking more of its clues these days, or cues rather, from a radical cleric. Here's Chief Foreign Correspondent Lara Logan.
This was an order U.S. soldiers manning checkpoints in parts of Baghdad were not expecting. Pack up and go. And this was the Iraqi reaction. Celebrations on the streets of Sadr city, home to the powerful Mahdi Army militia. Through their leader, Muqtada al-Sadr, they'd been pushing hard to get rid of the U.S. security barriers set up around their area to search for an American soldier abducted last Monday. Today, Sadr, perhaps the most powerful man in Iraq, got exactly what he wanted. This is a victory for the Mahdi army, this man said, echoing many here. A victory handed to them by the Iraqi Prime Minister through an order sanctioned by America's top leaders in Iraq, who met with Nouri al-Maliki hours before he issued the order that shut down all joint U.S.-Iraqi checkpoints around Sadr city and other neighborhoods by the end of the day. Maliki's move seen by many here as caving under the pressure from public demands and a massive strike called by Muqtada al-Sadr, the man whose support put the Prime Minister in power, leaving some here to question who is actually running this country. The Prime Minister's desperate to show he's not America's man in Iraq after what he sees as undue pressure from the U.S. that's led to strained relations in recent weeks. The American checkpoints disappeared within hours of Maliki's order, and along with them, American hopes of stopping their missing soldier being transported out of Baghdad, if he is even still alive. Lara Logan, CBS News, Baghdad.
Now, more about that story. David Martin broke here last night that U.S. troops may have to stay in Iraq a lot longer to train 100,000 more Iraqi security forces. Today, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld conceded it's true. Once again, here's David Martin.
Training and equipping Iraqi soldiers and police to take over the fighting from U.S. troops has always been the linchpin of the American exit strategy. Today, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld confirmed the mission is about to get bigger and take longer, saying he expects to approve a recommendation from General George Casey, the American commander in Iraq, to increase the size of the Iraqi security forces.
I'm very comfortable with the increases they've proposed and the accelerations in achievement of some of their targets that they've proposed.
That means there will be an increase?
That's my expectation.
Rumsfeld refused to say exactly how big an increase, but other Pentagon officials predicted the current goal of fielding 325,000 Iraqi soldiers and police will be increased by a minimum of 30,000 and a maximum of 100,000. Fielding more forces obviously will take more time, but Rumsfeld said that while American trainers and advisors will have to stay longer, combat troops could start coming home before them.
U.S. and coalition forces will not have the need to be there doing the kinds of things they're doing. In terms of patrolling, in terms of presence, those are the kinds of things that would very likely be less needed as the Iraqi forces increased.
One Pentagon official says the Iraqis will be expected to pick up more than half the added cost, but another official doubts they can come up with the money. Katie?
All right, David Martin. Thank you, David. Tension on another front eased a bit today. The North Koreans have agreed to negotiate again over their nuclear program. The six-nation talks could resume next month. President Bush welcomed the announcement, but said the UN still needs to enforce those sanctions against North Korea. On the medical front tonight, the heartbreak of sudden infant death syndrome. Since the government recommended parents put babies to sleep on their backs, SIDS deaths have been cut in half, but it still kills more than 2,000 babies every year. Tonight, Dr. John LaPook reports researchers have an important new clue to the SIDS mystery that could eventually save lives.
For parents of young babies, it's a worry that can shadow every nap time, lullaby, and lights out.
I would walk in even when she was fast asleep and I would just check if she's breathing.
SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome, is the leading cause of death for newborns in the U.S. The baby stops breathing while asleep, with little or no warning. Pauline Sokol-Nakios was at work when her husband called to say their son Alexander was being rushed to the hospital.
I could barely make out the words, but I heard him say, "We're in the ambulance, Alexander's not breathing."
For years, its cause has been a mystery. But new research published today in the Journal of the American Medical Association suggests SIDS may have a biological basis. Abnormalities in the brainstem, a part of the brain that regulates breathing, heart rate, body temperature, and arousal.
It demystifies what SIDS is.
Dr. Hannah Kinney and her researchers examined autopsy data from 31 SIDS babies and found differences in serotonin, a chemical that helps nerves communicate. When a baby's breathing is blocked, say, by a stuffed animal or sleeping face down, the brainstem normally adjusts by sending a message to wake the baby or stimulate breathing. SIDS babies may have abnormal wiring that short-circuits this important alarm system.
If there's a defect in the alarm system, the defense system, then the baby doesn't wake up. And we think that the serotonin system is such a defense system.
Researchers hope these findings help create a test for identifying infants at risk for SIDS. But for now, this new research gives SIDS parents something that is useful today, an explanation.
it could be reassuring to Sid's parents because it says SIDS is a disease process. It's not a mystery. It's not a bolt out of the blue. Yeah.
It's been 2 years since Pauline and Thomas Nakios lost Alexander.
Very good.
They say he will always be a part of their family.
Theo, our 9-month-old son, which we're blessed with this past January, he will always know that he had a brother.
So, John, this study should really be comforting to parents who have lost infants, right?
Right. I mean, there's nothing more devastating than losing a child, but parents should not feel guilty. It looks to be a wiring problem.
And what about the rule about placing an infant on his or her back in the crib and not keeping stuffed animals, pillows, blankets, or any other objects in there?
Right. That still applies. Back to sleep. Avoid the loose, soft objects like pillows, stuffed animals, blankets.
And have the baby on a firm surface, right?
A firm surface is very important.
All right. Dr. John LaPook. John, thanks so much.
Thanks.
If you have any questions about SIDS, go to our partner in health coverage. That's WebMD.com, and just search SIDS. Much more CBS News straight ahead. And coming up next, Bush versus Kerry, the sequel. How will it play? One day wonder or a story with legs?